What if that deep, aching loneliness you feel isn't a disorder, but a suppressed cosmic memory trying to wake you up? Deep inside this video lies the exact psychological map left by the ancients to navigate your inner chaos. And by the time we finish, you will understand why your anxiety might actually be your greatest spiritual asset. Most people live their entire lives without realizing that the voice in their head isn't theirs. Ancient texts discovered in the Egyptian desert describe a psychological parasite that mimics your own thoughts. It is a detail that modern psychology is only beginning to understand, but the Gnostics mapped it with terrifying precision 2,000 years ago. They knew that the reality you perceive is a projection of a fractured consciousness. They knew that your shadow isn't just a metaphor, but an active, autonomous force. And perhaps most shocking of all, they understood that the entity responsible for this fracture wasn't a devil, but a tragic aspect of our own collective soul known as Sophia. We are talking about a wisdom that was buried in a jar for 16 centuries because it was too dangerous for the ordinary mind to process. It reveals that the world around you is not a base reality, but a psychological mirror. Neuroscientists today are stumbling upon the fact that our brains filter out 99% of reality to keep us sane, which is exactly what these ancient scrolls described as the veil of forgetfulness. But what happens when that veil slips? What happens when a normal person suddenly realizes that the script of their life was written by a blind author? Stay with me, because the first step to rewriting that script begins right now. To understand why you feel like a stranger in your own life, we must go back to a specific moment in 1945, near the cliffs of Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt. Picture the scene. It is December. The air is dry and thick with the dust of the desert. A local peasant named Muhammad Ali al-Saman is digging for fertilizer near a massive boulder. His shovel hits something solid. It is not a rock. It is the hollow thud of pottery. He unearths a sealed red earthenware jar, almost a meter high. He hesitates to break it, fearing there might be a jinn, a spirit trapped inside. But the hope for gold overcomes his fear. He raises his mattock and smashes the jar. There was no gold inside. Instead, floating into the dry desert air, came the scent of papyrus and old leather. He had just discovered 13 leather-bound codices containing 52 texts that would rewrite our understanding of the human psyche forever. These were not merely religious scriptures, they were psychological dossiers. Among them was the Apocryphon of John and the Pistis Sophia. These texts told a story that had been silenced not by malice, but by the sands of time. A story that mirrors the exact emotional landscape of modern humanity. The detail nobody talks about is that these texts describe the creation of the universe not as a glorious act of an omnipotent architect, but as a tragic accident born of intense emotional distress. They speak of Sophia, an aeon, a consciousness of immense light who looked out into the void and felt a pang of profound loneliness. This is the first micro-revelation you need to grasp. The universe as we know it, the material world of atoms and gravity, was not created out of joy. It was created out of a crisis. Sophia wanted to know herself. She wanted to conceive a thought without her masculine counterpart, the spirit. In psychological terms, this is the moment the psyche splits. It is the moment the ego tries to create its own reality, separate from the self. The result was not a perfect creation, but a miscarriage. The texts describe a shadow coming forth, a being with the face of a lion and the body of a serpent. His name was Yaldabaoth, the demiurge. And here is the part they don't want you to know. This demiurge is not a monster under your bed. He is the architect of the reality you see when you open your eyes. He is the blind ego that believes it is the only God in existence. Have you ever felt this exact sensation without knowing why? That feeling that the world is run by a blind, mechanical force that doesn't care about your soul. What really shocked the researchers who translated these texts was how accurately they described the modern condition of alienation. The Gnostics didn't need the term existential dread, they lived it. They understood that when Sophia saw what she had created, this flawed, suffering world, she was filled with grief. But here is the paradox that breaks the logic of common theology. Her grief, her fear, and her confusion became the elements of our world. Her tears became the waters. Her sadness became the heavy matter. Your very emotions, the heaviness you feel in your chest on a Sunday evening, are not just biological reactions. They are echoes of that primordial trauma. Most people never notice that their desire is often a hunger that can never be filled. The Apocryphon of John explains this perfectly. The demiurge and his archons, which we can view as the archetypes of greed, envy, and pride, created the human body to trap the light of Sophia. They wanted to enslave this divine spark. So they engineered a counterfeit spirit. In 2024, we might call this the default mode network of the brain, the part of you that ruminates, worries, and craves constantly. This counterfeit spirit mimics your voice. It tells you that you will be happy if you just buy that car, if you just get that promotion, if you just get those likes. But the craziest thing happens when you actually get what you want. You feel empty again. Why? Because the desire didn't come from you. It came from the mechanism designed to keep Sophia's light distracted. The Vatican Library and the British Museum hold texts that explicitly state this world is a copy of the real one, a shadow realm. Plato talked about the shadows on the cave wall. The Wachowskis talked about the matrix. Jung talked about the collective unconscious. They are all pointing to the same terrifying truth. We are living inside a projection of a fallen mind. But here is the twist that usually takes years of study to uncover. Sophia didn't just stay in the higher realms watching us suffer. The myth says she descended. She fell into the chaos she created. She is not a distant deity. She is the soul within you. The part of you that is watching this video, the part that feels this isn't right, is Sophia herself, waking up in the mud. The anxiety you feel is not a sickness. It is her scream. It is the sound of the divine spark, realizing it is trapped in a machine that runs on autopilot. In 1974, the sci-fi author Philip K. Dick had a massive spiritual experience where he realized that time was an illusion and that we were still living in biblical times, trapped in what he called the Black Iron Prison. He wasn't crazy. He was tapping into the Gnostic timeline. He realized that the fall isn't an event in the past. It is happening right now. Every time you identify with your status, your body, or your pain, you are reenacting the fall of Sophia. You are feeding the demiurge. The detail that changes everything is found in the concept of epinoia. The texts say that when the demiurge trapped the spark in the body, the High Spirit secretly inserted a helper, the luminous epinoia. It is the imagination. It is the intuition. It is that sudden flash of insight that tells you, this is a lie. Have you ever had a dream that felt more real than waking life? That is the epinoia working. It is the backdoor code in the simulation. But when a normal person in the modern world tries to access this intuition without preparation, something dangerous happens. The demiurge fights back, the distractions increase, the phone notifications get louder, the drama in your life spikes. Wait until you hear what happened to the psychologist who tried to map these ancient archetypes onto his own patients and discovered a pattern that terrified him. The psychologist was none other than Carl Jung. In the later years of his life, locked away in his stone tower in Bollingen, Switzerland, Jung began to study these despised Gnostic fragments. He was looking for the root of human madness. What he found in the dusty pages of the Pistis Sophia made his blood run cold. He realized that the Gnostics were not talking about gods and demons in the sky. They were the world's first depth psychologists. They had mapped the subconscious mind 2,000 years before Freud. Jung discovered that what the Gnostics called archons, the rulers of this false reality, were exactly what he called autonomous complexes. These are splinters of the psyche that break off due to trauma and start living a life of their own inside your head. Think about the last time you flew into a rage that didn't feel like you, or the time you fell into a depression that felt like a heavy, wet blanket suffocating your will. You say, I don't know what came over me. The Gnostics would say, an archon took the seat. The text describes a specific mechanism called the antimemon pneuma, or the counterfeit spirit. This is not a metaphor. It is described as a subtle energy field that attaches to the soul as it descends through the planetary spheres to enter a body. It is a recording device. It records every trauma, every fear, every rejection you experience, and then plays it back to you on a loop, convincing you that this pain is your identity. The implications of this are terrifying because it means your personality, the you that you present to the world, might largely be a construct of this counterfeit spirit. It is a defense mechanism gone rogue. The Apocryphon of John details how this spirit works to harden the heart. It makes us heavy, it makes us sluggish, it makes us obsessed with matter, with things we can touch, buy, and consume. It weighs down the divine spark so that it forgets where it came from. It creates a kind of spiritual amnesia. You walk through life thinking you are the character in the movie, forgetting you are the one watching the screen. But the text goes deeper, offering a structural explanation for why breaking free is so difficult. It outlines that the demiurge didn't work alone. He created 7 governors to rule the world, corresponding to the 7 classical planets known to the ancients. But here the planets are not sources of wisdom, they are the jailers. Saturn is the limiter, the restrictor who brings time and death. Mars is the instigator of conflict. Venus is the trap of lust and hollow desire. The ancient text on the origin of the world explicitly states that these forces are woven into the very biology of the human form. Your body is a spacesuit designed by the Wardens. Archaeologists in 1974 found a Sumerian tablet describing the exact same 7-note scale that Pythagoras would discover 2,000 years later, proving that this system of 7 spheres was known to control human emotion long before the Bible was written. Have you ever felt a sudden wave of sadness with no explanation, as if the emotion was beamed into you from an external source? This leads us to the heart of the illusion. If your thoughts are being influenced by this counterfeit spirit, and your body is tuned to the frequencies of these archons, then what is reality? This brings us to the concept of the kenoma, or the void. The Gnostics taught that the material world is empty. It has no inherent existence. It is like a hologram. For centuries, this was dismissed as poetic nonsense, a metaphor for monks who hated the world. But today, quantum physics is uncomfortably close to proving them right. Consider the desk or the chair you're sitting on right now. It feels solid. It feels cold and hard. But any physicist will tell you that it is 99.9999% empty space. It is energy fields vibrating at a specific frequency to create the illusion of solidity. The Gnostics said that Sophia's emotions thickened into matter. Her fear became the earth. Her grief became the water. Her confusion became the air. We are literally walking through a solidified field of cosmic trauma. The ground you walk on is crystallized emotion. This changes the way we must look at the fall. It wasn't a moral punishment for eating an apple. It was a phase change. It was a descent from high-frequency consciousness into low-frequency matter. The demiurge is the master of this low frequency. He is the lord of forms. And to keep you trapped here, to keep you feeding him with your attention, he created the ultimate distraction. The interface. Dr. Donald Hoffman, a cognitive scientist at UC Irvine, has proposed a theory that sounds like it was ripped straight from the Pistis Sophia. He calls it the interface theory of perception. He argues with mathematical proof that if our senses showed us reality as it actually is, we would go extinct. We wouldn't be able to process the complexity. So, evolution gave us a user interface. When you look at a folder on your computer desktop, it looks like a little blue rectangle. But is the file inside the computer actually a blue rectangle? Of course not. It's a string of ones and zeros, magnetic states on a hard drive. The blue rectangle is just a symbol to let you interact with it without knowing how the computer works. Hoffman says that an apple, a car, or even your own hand are just desktop icons. They are symbols. They are not the truth. The Gnostics called these symbols idola, images without substance. We are like gamers so addicted to the VR headset that we have forgotten we have a body outside the game. We are chasing the icons, fighting over the icons, killing for the icons, while the true code of reality runs unseen in the background. The demiurge is the programmer of this interface, and he made it addictive by design. But here is where the story shifts from a tragedy to a thriller. If the world is a simulation, there must be a way to hack it. There must be a way to exit the program. The Gnostics called this gnosis. It is not intellectual knowledge. You cannot get gnosis from a book, not even from the Nag Hammadi library itself. Gnosis is the direct experiential shock of remembering who you are. It is the moment the gamer takes off the headset. The texts describe a process of ascent. It is the reverse engineering of the fall. It involves navigating past the 7 archons, the 7 psychological barriers of the ego, and retrieving the scattered shards of Sophia's light. But the system is rigged to prevent this. The counterfeit spirit has a fail-safe mechanism. It uses fear. When you start to wake up, when you start to question the reality of the societal game, the system attacks. You lose friends. You lose stability. You face the dark night of the soul. This isn't a punishment, it is the immune system of the Matrix trying to purge the virus of your awakening. In 2019, a CIA declassified document accidentally confirmed the exact frequency the monks were using. A gateway process report explicitly described the universe as a hologram of intersecting energy fields, validating the Gnostic view of a spectral reality. Do certain numbers keep appearing in your life no matter where you look, as if the code of the simulation is glitching specifically for you? But what you're about to see next changes everything. This brings us to the most uncomfortable realization of the entire Gnostic transmission. If the world is a projection of a fallen consciousness, and if you contain a spark of that consciousness, then the chaos you see out there, the wars, the corruption, the endless noise, is not just happening to you. It is a macrocosmic reflection of the war happening inside your own chest. The Gospel of Thomas, another text found in that jar, contains a line that haunts scholars to this day. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. This is the psychological mechanism of the trap. The demiurge, or the ego, thrives on repression. It thrives on you pushing down your trauma, your shadow, and your pain. When you repress an emotion, you are essentially feeding the archons. You are giving them energy to build more walls in your prison. The counterfeit spirit grows stronger every time you say, "I'm fine," when you are actually screaming inside. It grows stronger every time you distract yourself with scrolling because you cannot bear the silence of your own room. The tragic irony of Sophia's story is that she created her own jailer because she refused to acknowledge her own separation. She tried to create alone. She tried to bypass the union with the spirit. And in our lives, we do the exact same thing. We try to fix our lives by rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic. We try to change our external circumstances, a new job, a new partner, a new city, without ever addressing the fractured lens through which we view reality. We are trying to clean the mirror instead of washing our face. The text described that the only way Sophia could eventually rise was not by fighting the demiurge, but by realizing he had no power over her light. She had to remember her origin. This is the concept of anamnesis, the unforgetting. It is the sudden shock of realizing that you are royalty suffering from amnesia in a slum, but the system is designed to keep you asleep. It uses a weapon that is subtle and pervasive: time. The Gnostics viewed time not as a line, but as a loop, a cycle of repetition designed to harvest energy. The more you try to find your true self, the stronger the illusion becomes, unless you use this forbidden method. This leads us to the practical core of the mystery. How do we actually break the loop? How do we stop feeding the archons and start retrieving the sparks of Sophia? The answer lies in a practice that the ancient texts hint at, but which modern neuroscience has only recently begun to validate. It is the practice of non-reactive observation. The Pistis Sophia describes the heroine singing repentances to the light, but the word repentance is a mistranslation. The Greek word is metanoia. It doesn't mean saying sorry for your sins. It means changing your mind or going beyond the mind. It is a shift in the direction of your consciousness. Normally, your attention flows outward into the world of things, feeding the simulation. Metanoia is the act of turning that light backward into the source of the attention itself. When a negative thought arises, "I am not good enough, I am in danger, I will never succeed," your standard reaction is to engage with it. You argue with it. You try to suppress it. You believe it. The Gnostic instruction is radically different. You must treat the thought as an external object. You must look at your own anger as if it were a stone on the table. You acknowledge its existence, but you refuse to identify with it. You say, "I see the anger, but I am the one seeing it." This simple act of separation is the nuclear weapon against the archons. Why? Because the demiurge needs your identification to survive. He needs you to believe that you are the anger. The moment you step back into the position of the observer, the silent witness behind the eyes, you cut the power cord. The counterfeit spirit is starved of its fuel. This is not just spiritual metaphor, it is biological fact. When you observe an emotion without reacting, you shift brain activity from the amygdala, the lizard brain of survival and fear, to the prefrontal cortex, the seat of higher awareness. You literally move from the biological suit of the archons to the throne of the divine spark. The Gospel of Philip puts it bluntly: the slave who knows he is a slave is already half free. The first step of the escape is realizing that the voice commenting on your life right now is not you. It is the narrator implanted by the system. The real you is the silence underneath the voice, and accessing that silence requires a courage that most people simply do not have. It requires the courage to sit in the dark and feel the terror of the void without reaching for a distraction. But here is where the rubber meets the road. Monday morning, the alarm rings, the anxiety kicks in. The counterfeit spirit starts listing all the things you have to worry about. What do? The Gnostic map offers a 3-step protocol for this exact moment. First, the stop. The texts speak of standing still in the midst of motion. When the wave of emotion hits, you physically freeze. You refuse to act on the impulse. You disrupt the algorithmic loop of the brain. Second, the naming. You name the archon. You say internally, this is anxiety, this is envy, this is despair. By naming it, you exert power over it. In ancient magic, to know the true name of a demon was to control it. Psychologically, labeling an emotion reduces its intensity by up to 50%. Third, the offering. This is the most esoteric and beautiful part. You take that heavy, leaden emotion, and instead of pushing it away, you offer it up to the light. You visualize the feeling dissolving into the vastness of your own awareness. You are performing internal alchemy. You are turning the heavy matter of the demiurge back into the light of Sophia. Have you ever heard a voice in your head that didn't feel like yours, criticizing your every move with a cruelty you would never use on a friend? Stay with me, because the ritual I'm about to describe breaks the cycle forever. The ritual is found in a metaphorical story within the Gnostic tradition known as the Hymn of the Pearl. It tells of a prince, Yu, who is sent from his father's palace in the east to the land of Egypt, the material world, to retrieve a single pearl guarded by a serpent. But once in Egypt, the prince eats the heavy food of the locals, falls into a deep sleep, and forgets he is a son of kings. He forgets the pearl. He thinks he is an Egyptian. This is your life. The heavy food is the cultural conditioning, the news cycle, the cheap dopamine, the endless pursuit of status. This sleep is your current state of consciousness. The ritual to break this cycle is the act of reading the letter. In the hymn, a letter flies from the east in the form of an eagle and speaks to the prince. It says, "Awake and remember who you are. Remember the pearl for which you were sent. To perform this in your daily existence, you must become a conscious glitch in the system. You must practice the sacred pause. The demiurge controls you through momentum. He keeps you moving so fast you cannot see the bars of the cage. The ritual is to stop, literally. 3 times a day, freeze. Look at your hands. Ask yourself, am I the one moving these hands, or is the program moving them? This simple question creates a fracture in the illusion. It summons the epinoia. You will feel a strange sensation, a vertigo, a feeling of being both here and not here. That feeling is the pearl. It is the retrieval of your sovereignty from the serpent of the subconscious autopilot. But this journey leads us to a final, terrifying, and beautiful realization. If Sophia lives in us, and if her suffering is our suffering, then our awakening is her redemption. We are not just trying to fix our anxiety to have a better Tuesday. We are engaged in a cosmic rescue mission. Every time you refuse to act on a destructive impulse, every time you choose silence over noise, every time you offer kindness instead of judgment, you are retrieving a shard of Sophia from the darkness. You are helping God put herself back together. This shifts the entire purpose of your life. You are no longer a victim of a cruel world. You are a secret agent in enemy territory. The depression, the loneliness, the confusion, these are not signs that you are broken. They are the camouflage you wear to survive in the black iron prison until the moment you remember your mission. The ultimate secret of the Gnostic revelation is not that we must escape the world, but that we must transfigure it. The Gospel of Thomas ends with a promise of integration. When you make the two into one, when you make the inner like the outer and the upper like the lower, then you enter the kingdom. The kingdom is not a place you go when you die. It is a frequency you tune into right now. It is overlaid upon this world, waiting for you to have the eyes to see it. The demiurge wants you to believe that you are a biological accident, fighting for survival in a dead universe. Sophia is the whisper in your blood that tells you that you are an eternal consciousness, having a temporary human experience. The choice of which voice to listen to is the only true free will you possess. So as you go back into the simulation, look closely at the things that trigger you. Look at the people who annoy you. Look at the fears that keep you up at night. They are not random. They are the friction points designed to wake you up. They are the alarm clock set by your own soul before you were born. The question is not whether the world is an illusion. The question is, do you have the courage to stop playing the game and start writing the code?